Hey, it's Ed. Welcome to another episode of Ed Talks. I know you have a lot of different things you can watch and listen to, and there's great content out there. I just want to say thank you for taking a moment to follow Ed Talks and to be with us on this journey. And I'm excited to have Andy Draper back. Andy, welcome to Ed Talks.
Hey, Ed, thanks.
So last time we talked about sustainability in general. And so if you haven't seen that episode, no worries. Just look in the show notes. I'll put a link to it. And really, it was like, first we talked about what the issue is, right? And I don't think it's any surprise to anyone about our carbon footprints are so large and, what we're doing to the environment, things like that. And it's just costly. And then we just talked about that in general. And then we went down specifically, like what are four, I can't remember if it was exactly 4 or 5, but there's like key things you could do, things I never did, or maybe I did one of them, but I really needed to do all of them. So this is a super practical episode. What I want to talk about today is GreenCIO. And so the concept is sort of obvious what that might mean, but it's also a nonprofit, Andy, that you started because you saw, I think you're definitely a leader in the industry. You're one of the first out there to see what an issue this was and how CIOs need to take a more proactive role. So tell us a little bit about GreenCIO.
Sure. And thanks, Ed. I love all your presentations. I enjoy seeing you whenever we're together. So thank you for this opportunity. So GreenCIO it's greencio.org. It's a 501c3 nonprofit I formed two or 3 years ago. And the reason was to create a platform to engage CIOs, whether they're in healthcare or other industries, on what to do to reduce their carbon footprint of their organization and improve the sustainability. And particularly for healthcare, part of our mission is to take care of our community and public health. And so it's really in our DNA. And I wanted to provide a roadmap, and I'm happy to talk more about that, of what CIOs can do in healthcare. Before I do that, and I want to share that, one of the key platforms that Google has in their 5 platforms, their strategic plan, is sustainability, and particularly using more renewable energy. Amazon, same thing. Amazon's actually got a huge investment in an electric company called Rivian, electric vehicle company.
Yeah.
Microsoft, all their data centers, all their Azure is carbon neutral. So healthcare is beginning to get into there. I would say that the challenge with healthcare is we have a lot of big buildings that use a lot of energy, water, cooling, air handling, anesthesia gases. And there's a huge opportunity that's just not being addressed. And I think in conclusion, CIOs, in my view, and I'm sure your view too, Ed, we're not just leaders of an IT department. We can be transformational leaders of an organization using technology. And sustainability and reducing the carbon footprint of a health system is absolutely part of our agenda. And that's the energy I'm using to try to get the word out. So thank you.
Yeah, no, I love it. And the fact that you've taken this on not only as your part of your mission in your professional daily work, but you've seen the need, you saw the vacuum of information or help, and created your not-for-profit. So that's pretty cool. I know one of the things that you worked on in the not-for-profit is sort of this pathway. Like what's the pathway? And I want to warn people ahead of time, like don't get overwhelmed by the intensity of the pathway. It's not like you have to do everything at once, right, Andy? It's like kind of
Yeah.
one step at a time, and you have to have collaborative stuff. Can you sort of explain a little bit about that pathway and what's all part of it?
Yeah, I'll keep it simple. There is a 25-year-old standard. And it's called the Greenhouse Gas Protocol. And it is an international standard. And it organizes carbon emissions into 3 categories. The first category is burn. And it's things you burn in the course of your operation. So for a health system, natural gas or heating oil for our friends in the Northeast, our vehicle fleets, cars, trucks, snow moving equipment, airplanes, helicopters. Those are all big things. Anesthesia. One of the biggest polluters is anesthesia. When you put anesthesia starts as a liquid. from the pharmacy. It's connected to the machine and it's gasified. What you breathe in must come out. And there's a particular anesthesia gas called desflurane, and it stays in the environment for 25,000 years.
Jeez.
And it can be eliminated. And you have to, as a CIO, you have to work with your physician leaders, but you can eliminate desflurane and make it a quick win. And it's also one of the most expensive gases. So it's a win-win. So that's burn. Scope 2 is electricity, full stop, from your electricity. And we talked in the first episode about, I would challenge every CIO to call your electricity vendor and ask them, what rebates can I get? What programs do you offer? Engage the vendors just like we do. And then scope 3 is a little more difficult, but it's basically supply chain. And it's the things we buy. It's the gowns. It's the single-use devices. It's increasing reprocessing of surgical equipment that can be reused again, made of steel. It's investments. The investment portfolio for a health system can represent up to 20% of the emissions. So just in conclusion, scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3. Scope 1 and scope 2 represent 20% of the emissions of a health system, and those are generally within the facility and the CFO. Scope 3 represents 80%. And so there's a big win in starting to engage your suppliers and your vendors. And that's what CIOs do. This is very natural for us to go tackle this problem, because we tackle huge problems every day before 8 a.m.
Right. That's right. Yeah, that's super helpful. Those different categories, right? You can Google and find all the stuff online, that particular hack. Yeah, I remember it was heresy 20 years ago. I think it's much more popular today, but I still walk into facilities where everyone has a printer and just the cost. But when you go to sustainability, the ink, my gosh, the paper. So, I made a name for myself many years ago by removing all the printers and then the one that's going to step on more people's toes. I'm just being super practical here, but it saves so much money. There is ROI. We talked about that in the first episode. That printer example, as simple as it is, the anesthesia one, brilliant. But everyone has a laptop and a PC, and they'll have multiple monitors. I know I'm stepping on people's toes, but all that adds up, especially if you're in a $4 billion organization or 10 billion, or even, a small community hospital, as a percent of your overall expenditures and supply chain, all that stuff adds up. So there's definitely things that you can do pretty quick. You can get some quick wins. It's not like one of these ROIs that you have to wait years for. It really pays for itself pretty quickly. Very quickly.
And, the CIO's role is tackle a big project, get a governance committee together, make your CFO your ally, right?
Yeah.
We all do that. The way you talk CFO language is, we can save you money. Are you interested? There you run. Engage a doctor. But here's a couple things, excuse me. The HR, the millennial population and the Gen Z population are super in tune with this.
Yeah.
All things being equal, if pay is equal and the commute is equal, those folks that are around 35 or younger will choose a company that does sustainability over one that does not.
Yeah.
And there's publications out there. Excuse me.
Yeah. No worries. Yeah, you're absolutely right. The younger generations, they grow up with an environmental attitude, that we got to, be more cognizant of what we're doing to the environment. And so they're naturally aligned with organizations that have the same sort of core belief system. So yeah, it's a recruitment and retention tool.
Another big constituency that's very interested in this are, guess what? Nurses and doctors. And if you, as a CIO, as a leader, if the conversation starts going to, hey, what motivates you? There are physicians who are really interested in this. And you just need to go and find those people, just like CIOs do to look for champions. There are environmental champions. There are nurses who are super passionate about this because they see all the waste that's created. And then I can tell you in a second what some other quick wins that CIOs can do using their EMR and other tools, if you'd like, Ed.
Yeah, so certainly since a lot of our audience sort of have a technical bent, I think probably it's probably like the early days of EMR in terms of evolution, right? There's probably a lot of handwritten things, and then you might have the majority probably using a spreadsheet or something. Yeah. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about the software capabilities that can help with all this sort of thing.
Sure. So the first thing, as we talked about in the first episode, is as a CIO, have you as the CIO or somebody on your team go meet with the facility director and look at the software that they use. And there are sensors, just like remote monitoring is huge right now on the clinical side. There are sensors that folks want to put all over in air ducts, things like that. Here's a couple of really specific things that health system CIOs can do. So let's assume they've already had that conversation with the facilities director. They've realized they need to upgrade their building automation system, which is like a building EMR, because it's probably been neglected. And they've talked to their CFO about energy budgeting because there's hidden dollars ready to go, ready to be saved there. Epic and other EMRs have a module that tracks the anesthesia gas usage because that data comes from pharmacy. I challenged our clinical informatics team to put alerts so that when a physician's about ready to just prescribe desflurane, which is the worst anesthesia gas, there would be a little pop-up. Well, CIOs in our teams have been putting pop-ups in front of physicians for 25 years. There's all kinds of little quick wins like that that can be done. And then finally, there are spreadsheets. Practice Green Health is a great nonprofit organization. They have a tool. There are other tools that you can start to track it and trend it, because once you engage physicians, they're going to want to say, okay, well, how much anesthesia gas did we use last year, and how can we reduce it for next year, the desflurane and some of the other bad gases. So it gets into data. And again, CIOs have analytical teams reporting to us. We have project managers reporting to us. This is very much like any other CIO-driven project, partnering with somebody on the hospital side, and then just go get it, because there are a lot of quick wins. And lastly, don't forget about marketing, because patients and the communities want to know, what are my hospitals doing with sustainability? And don't forget about HR, because one of the easiest quick wins is to create a green team. And the green team can be in IT, like what you were describing, have some IT people come together and say, gosh, why do we have all of our monitors turned on over the weekend? Can we turn those things off? There's software we can write for that kind of stuff. Nurses want to get engaged in reducing waste. The cafeteria wants to get engaged in having local sourced foods, which are healthier and don't have all that processing. So getting HR engaged really is a big, powerful driver as well.
Yeah, those are really good examples, right? Like you're saying, these are the skills and the leadership techniques we've been leveraging our entire career. But now we just need to, in addition to, all the great things we're doing on the clinical side and revenue side, we have to take care of the environment too, and think about sustainability. And, on the point of marketing, Andy, as you were saying that, another differentiator for your healthcare system, to the extent that people have choice, don't always have a choice. Sometimes you do. But if you could have a choice between hospital A and hospital B, or practice A and practice B, and you're going to go with the one that's more aligned, in your way of thinking. If it's just someone who's concerned about sustainability, clearly that's a huge differentiator. Why would you not want to go there?
Absolutely.
And plus, I think it says a lot too about the overall culture of an organization. I mean, I'm taking a little bit of a leap here, but it's like if you walk onto a clean airplane, you feel a little bit confident, right? Like, hey, everyone knows their stuff here and they take their job seriously. You walk on a dirty airplane, you're like, if they don't clean the cabin, what's happening in the cockpit, So
Right.
this is good practice, and it builds confidence, I think, in your customers or your prospects. So really good stuff. So how do they get a hold of your not-for-profit? And I'll put it in the show notes.
It's greencio.org.
GreenCIO.org. And I know there's software there as well, I think, that people
Yeah.
can leverage.
Yeah, I think the first is, where there is will, there is a way.
Yeah.
And I would say the other thing I hear a lot too, Ed, and then is, oh, we're too busy. Well, when I was a consultant for Tiber Group based out of Chicago 25 years ago, the opening slide we would do for any board presentation was the perfect storm. And it was reimbursement and government regulations and physicians leaving and splitters and surgeons. And healthcare are the toughest people that I know. We're resilient as hell, right? We've been through COVID. We're cancer survivors. We help people every day and go home and feed our families. We can do this. If we can't do this in our communities, it's just not going to get done. And I think that's the real opportunity that gets me excited every morning.
Yeah. Annie, I love it. I love the passion. I think it's the right thing. I wish we had this conversation a few years ago, because I'd be right there with you now. I am now, since we reconnected. So thanks so much for sharing. We'll probably have you back on another episode talking about taking it to the next level. So as people catch up, we'll have another discussion about this, how to get to that next level. So Annie, thank you for being on EDTalks.
Thank you, Ed.
Hey, that wraps up another edition of EDTalks. Thanks for watching.